The telephone rang, shrill, urgent. It cut the silence of Gossington Hall. James Dobson paused, his hands still on the silver tray. He counted the chimes of the hall clock. 6:10. Upstairs, footsteps, firm, military. Colonel Bantry crossed the landing. He lifted the receiver. "Bantry here," a voice answered. "Arthur, it's Hale. Car broke down near Chester Cross. Need your help." Bantry spoke quick. "Understood. 20 minutes." The receiver clicked down. James listened. The colonel's door opened, then Mrs. Bantry's lighter step. "Arthur, what is it at this hour?" "Nothing to worry about. Hale's stuck on the road. I'll fetch him." "At dawn? Can't it wait?" "No, Dolly. A friend calls. I'll be back before tea." The steps moved down the stairs. James placed the cloth aside. He filled a flask with tea. He reached for the colonel's case. Side door creaked. Keys jingled. The cough of the motor. The Wolseley starting. Garage doors scraping open. Then fading sound. James nodded. Colonel Bantry never delayed a friend. 7 o'clock. House stirred awake. Mrs. Bantry entered the morning room, her rose robe neat, her face pale. James served tea. She touched the cup once. Her hand trembled. "Has Arthur returned?" "Not yet, madam." "Strange. He should be back." James arranged the post. Then came a knock, hard, sharp. Doorbell rang at once. James opened. A boy stood there, grubby, nervous. "Message for Mrs. Bantry, sir." He held an envelope. "Who gave you this?" "A gentleman in a motor. Said it's urgent. Gave me a shilling." The boy ran off. James studied the envelope. Heavy paper, no stamp. Addressed in block letters. "Mrs. Arthur Bantry, urgent." He carried it to her. She broke the seal. Her face drained white. Her hand shook. Her eyes fixed on the page. James leaned closer. "What is it, madam?" Her whisper cracked. "Send for Miss Marple. At once. Call Inspector Slack. Call Dr. Haydock." "Of course, but has there been an accident?" Her eyes met his, fear deeper than he had ever seen. "The colonel has been kidnapped. If I don't bring the hospital fund by noon, they will kill him." The room fell still. James steadied himself. He bowed. "I'll make the calls." Mrs. Bantry clutched the letter. Her lips moved faint. "Arthur, where are you?" "Cliffhanger." Her fingers pressed the page, the words clear. "Bring the hospital fund or he dies." Dolly's voice trembled. "Send for Jane." James bowed. "Yes, madam." He dialed. One call to Miss Marple, one to Inspector Slack, one to Dr. Haydock. He moved fast, his voice steady. But his hands shook. Mrs. Bantry sat still, the letter in her lap. Her eyes never lifted. Her lips moved once. "Arthur, why?" Within half an hour, Miss Marple arrived, brisk, quiet. She carried her bag, her blue eyes sharp. James met her at the door. "This way, madam." She stepped in, her gaze swept quick. The mat, the umbrella stand, every detail noted. Dolly rose from her chair. She clutched Jane's hand. "Arthur is gone. They want the cash box. By noon." Her voice cracked. Jane's hand tightened. "My dear Dolly, we must think. Sit. Tell me." Dolly tried. She spoke in short bursts. "Arthur left at dawn," said Major Hale, cold. Then the note arrived. "Hospital fund, or his life." Jane listened. Not a word wasted, not a breath misplaced. She glanced at James. "You heard the car?" "Yes, madam." Motor started. Doors scraped. He drove off. Jane nodded. Her eyes narrowed. "And you, Dolly, did you hear the voice?" "Arthur told me. It was Hale. He believed it." Marple sat back. Her mind turned. A false call. A missing colonel. A demand too small for ransom. She looked at Dolly. "You must stay calm. Hysteria is what they want. We will not give them that." Dolly whispered. "I can't think. What do I do?" "You called me. That was enough." James cleared his throat. Inspector Slack will arrive shortly. Marple raised a hand. Then before he arrives, we begin. First impressions matter. We must not lose them. Dolly blinked. Begin where? The garage. That is where Arthur's journey began. Or seemed to. James hesitated. Shall I fetch my coat? Madam? Number remain here. Watch the door. No one enters without notice. They crossed the hall. Dolly clung to Jane's arm, her steps unsteady, her face pale, her voice low. Jane, what if the letter is true? Jane's answer was firm. Letters lie, clues do not. The courtyard lay ahead. Jane's eyes moved. No wasted glance, no delay. The garage door unlocked. The hinges moved silent. Dolly pushed it wide. She gestured inside. Arthur always locked it when he left. Jane stood still, her gaze fixed. The Wolseley sat ready, its surface dull in the dim light. She stepped forward. Gloved hand touched the bonnet. She pressed. She waited. Cliffhanger. Her lips moved quiet. Stone cold, Dolly. The Wolseley stood untouched. No mark, no sign of a journey. Dolly's eyes darted. It looks as if it never moved. Jane stepped closer. Her hand moved slow. She pointed. Gloves here, cap there, pipe still on the shelf. Dolly stared. Arthur never drives without them. Her voice broke. Never. James had followed them. He cleared his throat. I swear I heard the motor, the cough of the engine, the scrape of the doors. Jane's gaze swept the floor. The chalk mark still on the rear tire, unbroken, her voice calm. If the wheels turned, this mark would be gone. James shook his head. I know what I heard. Jane's eyes narrowed. She moved to the bench. Her gloved fingers touched tools. She bent low. A cloth lay partly hidden. Dark stain marked it. She held it up. Red blotches. Clear. Dolly gasped. Her hands flew to her mouth. He was hurt here. Arthur bled in this very room. Her knees weakened. James rushed forward. Madam, steady yourself. Jane spoke, flat. Number, look closer. Dolly blinked. Her voice cracked. What do you mean? Jane rubbed the stain. The mark smeared too easily. Not thick, not dried. Her eyes sharp. Paint, not blood. James whispered. Then why place it here? Jane turned. To fool you, to fool us all. Dolly trembled. Someone wanted me to believe he suffered here. They wanted me to panic. Jane placed the cloth down, her hand steady, her voice quiet. And panic you did. That is why it was planted. James stared at the cold car, his lips tight. Then, the motor never left? Jane nodded once. He never drove out. Yet we all heard it. Dolly whispered. How? Jane walked to the side door. Her hand touched the frame, fresh oil on the hinges, the silence too smooth. She tapped the door, the faint jingle of a mechanism inside. Her eyes lit. A trick. Someone wanted us to hear what was not real. Dolly gripped her arm, her eyes wide. Then Arthur was taken, from here, in silence. Jane's hand rested on Dolly's, her voice soft. Yes, and someone knew you would believe the sound of a car over the truth of a cold bonnet. Dolly looked down, her whisper heavy. I never doubted him, not once, and now they use that against me. Jane's gaze fixed on the cloth, her words sharp. Cliffhanger, number someone wanted us to think so. The gates stood ahead, iron black, dew clung bright. Jane slowed her steps, her eyes sharp. Look there. Dolly followed, her breath caught. What is it? A web stretched across the post. Thin, perfect, no strand broken. Jane leaned closer. Her gloved finger stopped short. This was built at dawn. If the car passed, it would be gone. Dolly's voice trembled. Then he never drove through here. Jane nodded. Not once. The gate stayed shut. James shifted uneasily. But we heard the motor. We all did. Jane's tone was flat. Sound can be copied, but a spider leaves truth. Dolly turned pale. Then where is he? Her hands gripped Jane's sleeve. "Jane, if he never left, then where?" Jane held her steady. "We will find him, but not here." Heavy steps approached. Inspector Slack, broad frame, hard eyes. He strode up, Dr. Haydock behind. Slack's voice cut sharp. "Well, what have we here?" Dolly spoke first. "Arthur never left. Jane says so. The web proves it." Slack frowned. "Nonsense, he left at dawn. You heard him." "I'll not argue with webs and dew." Jane's gaze steady. "Inspector, logic speaks. No car passed." Slack pointed at the ground. "Tracks in the lane, clear as print." He drove. Haydock coughed lightly. "Perhaps we should examine them before—" Slack interrupted. "I've seen tracks before. Man left. Was taken on the road." Jane's voice softened. "Inspector, you trust marks in mud more than signs in air?" Slack bristled. "I trust evidence, Miss Marple. A man is gone. He drove. That is fact." Jane turned back to the web. Her finger hovered near. "Not fact. Illusion. This web is proof stronger than wheels. It shows time. It shows truth." Dolly whispered low. "Then Arthur was trapped here, inside the grounds." Her words hung heavy. The morning chill seemed sharper. Slack scowled. "You cling to shadows. He left. I'll not have stories about spiders run my case." Jane faced him, her eyes hard, her tone quiet. Cliffhanger. "Inspector, the tracks lie." The lane stretched beyond the cricket field, gravel loose, mud soft. Sergeant Lake waved. "Here, Inspector, fresh tire marks." They gathered round, 2 sets clear, one smooth, one coarse. Slack crouched low. "Colonel's Wolseley, and another. Van, most likely. Both left at dawn." Dolly's breath caught. "Then Arthur did drive out?" Jane stepped closer. Her eyes fixed on the ground. She traced the lines with her stick. "Smooth here, coarse there." Lake nodded. "Clear as daylight." Jane shook her head. "Look closer." Slack frowned. "I see tracks, Miss Marple. Don't play riddles." Jane pointed. "Moisture shines here, Inspector. Still wet. The coarse marks are fresh. The smooth ones are not." Slack leaned in. "What do you mean?" Jane touched the edge of the Wolseley print. "See how the dust settled? That happens when earth dries. Hours pass. Rain clears. This is yesterday." Haydock bent low. He rubbed the edge with his finger. He nodded slowly. "She's right. These marks are older." Dolly looked lost. "But James heard him leave. We all heard it. How can that be?" Jane's eyes narrowed. "Because someone wanted you to believe it." Slack straightened. "You're saying the Colonel never left. Then whose fresh marks are these?" Jane moved along the line. Her stick tapped. The coarse tread shallow, then deep. The weight uneven. She stopped. "Not a van, not a car." She tapped again. A wheelbarrow, fitted with cart tires. Lake blinked. "A wheelbarrow? But why?" Jane cut him off. "To make you think a motor passed." Slack's jaw tightened. "You're suggesting someone dragged a barrow through the lane to fool me?" Jane's voice firm. "Yes, staged, purposeful. They wanted you to chase the wrong road." Dolly pressed her hands to her face, her whisper soft. "Every clue pulls us away from him, every sign false." Haydock put a hand on her shoulder. "Steady, Dolly. Jane's finding the pattern." Slack muttered. "I don't like tricks. This feels like children's games." Jane's tone sharpened. "Not games, Inspector. Planning. Someone had time. They wanted us blind." Lake scratched his head. "Groundsman said his barrow went missing days ago. Could match this." Jane nodded once. 3 days. Enough to prepare. Enough to lay deception. Dolly lowered her hands, her eyes wet. "Arthur was never on this road. He's still near. I feel it." Jane's gaze stayed on the tracks, her voice low, final. "This was staged, purposefully." Cliffhanger. Inside the hall, questions turned sharp. Inspector Slack stood tall, his eyes as though swept the staff. James waited near the stairs, his hands clasped, his face tense. Slack barked. "James, step forward." The butler obeyed, Slack's voice cut. "What time did you hear the motor start?" 6:10, sir. I looked at the clock." Jane leaned closer. "And how long after did you hear the doors scrape?" James hesitated. "Seconds, madam. Perhaps a minute." Jane's gaze narrowed. "You are certain?" James swallowed. "Yes, I believe so." Slack pressed. "You believe? Or you know?" James faltered. I know." Dolly stared. "James, why so unsure?" James wiped his brow. "Forgive me, madam, I was serving breakfast. It all came quick. Perhaps I misjudged the time." Jane studied him, her eyes steady, shaky words, shaky man, but not a liar. Slack turned. "Mrs. Beddoes, the key to the blue room, was it in place?" The housekeeper stepped forward. "Yes, sir. Last night I checked. Hung proper, as always." "And this morning?" Her chin lifted. "This morning, gone." Dolly gasped. "But who would take it?" Beddoes snapped. "Not I. I guard those keys as I guard my life." Slack grunted. "We shall see." Jane interrupted. "Mrs. Beddoes, when did you notice it missing?" 6:30. When I prepared, the linen. Jane's voice sharpened. "And you told no one?" "I was about to, madam, when the inspector arrived." Jane made no reply. Her eyes moved to Mason. The chauffeur stood apart, hands folded behind. Too neat, too clean. Slack's tone harsh. "Mason, why is there not a trace of grease on your hands? You spend nights in the garage, yet spotless today." Mason stiffened. "I washed, sir. A man should be clean." Jane's voice quiet. "Too clean, perhaps." Mason's jaw tightened. His gaze fell low. "I served the colonel true. I did no wrong." Dolly's heart raced. She whispered to Jane. "They all look guilty. Every face, every answer false." Jane squeezed her hand. "Not all guilty, but one knows more than he admits." Slack barked. "They whisper among themselves. They hide. I'll drag truth from them." Dolly flinched. The murmur of voices spread among the staff. Fear, suspicion, unease. Jane stepped forward, her eyes calm, her voice low. "Not force, Inspector. Logic. Fear only deepens lies." Dolly's eyes filled, her whisper faint. "I cannot trust them. Not James. Not Beddoes. Not Mason." Every word twists. Jane turned to her. Her voice final. "Someone inside knows too much." Cliffhanger. The tassel lay on the floor, frayed, torn loose. Jane bent down. She lifted it. "The blue room key." Slack frowned. "So it dropped." Jane shook her head. Number it was pulled. They moved together. Dolly clutched Jane's arm, her voice low. "Arthur never used that room. Never." Jane nodded. "All the more reason to search it." Slack gestured to Lake. "Open the door." The key slid in. The lock turned. The door groaned wide. Inside, silence. Furniture dusted. Curtains still drawn. Jane's gaze sharp. Her steps slow. She scanned the floor. She scanned the walls. Dolly whispered. "It feels wrong. As if someone watched us here." Jane moved to the wardrobe. Tall. Heavy. Shut tight. Her hand rested on the handle. She pulled. The door opened. Nothing but coats. Slack scoffed. "Waste of time." Jane pressed her hand against the back. Wood creaked. A thin draft slipped through. She turned. "Help me move this." Lake stepped forward. Together they dragged it aside. The wardrobe scraped hard. Behind it, a panel. Small, narrow, a latch on the side. Jane pressed. The panel shifted open. A dark passage stretched beyond. Air damp. Faint smell heavy. Dolly gasped. "What is that smell?" Haydock leaned close. He sniffed. Chloroform. Fresh slack stiffened. "So he was drugged, hidden here." Jane's voice. Calm. "Yes, bound and taken below, not driven away." Dolly's hands shook. Her whisper broke. Arthur. Trapped in his own house. Haydock placed a hand on her shoulder. He is alive, Dolly. The scent is strong. He was here not long ago. Jane stepped inside the passage. Her hand brushed the wall. Her stick tapped stone. She counted her steps. Slack muttered. Never thought Bantry's house held rat holes like this. Jane answered softly. Old houses hide more than silver. Secrets live in their walls. Dolly gripped the doorframe, her face pale. I should have known. Something was wrong. Something inside these walls. Jane turned back, her eyes sharp, her words firm. Arthur is closer than you think. Cliffhanger, the passage led down. Narrow, cold. Each step echoed faint. Lake held a torch. The beam cut the dark. Marks showed on the dust. Footsteps. Heavy, dragged, Dolly whispered. They brought him this way. Jane touched the wall. Not long ago, still fresh. They pressed on. The air grew damp. A faint drip sounded ahead. Slack raised his hand. Quiet. They listened. A low murmur carried through the stones. Two voices, one calm, one strained. Haydock leaned in. Someone is down there, still talking. They edged forward. The passage widened. Stone gave way to open chamber. Torchlight swept across. The ice house, walls rough, floor bare. And on the floor, Colonel Bantry, rope cut his wrists. Cloth bound his mouth, eyes wide, alive. Dolly cried. Out. Arthur! She rushed, but Jane held her back. Wait! From the shadows, movement. A figure bent low. Sack in one hand, mask over face. Slack barked. Hold there. The figure froze. Torchlight caught his coat. The face turned. Dolly gasped. Mason! The chauffeur stepped back. His hands shook. I meant no harm. Slack's voice thundered. You drugged him. You tied him. You dare say no harm? Mason dropped the sack. It clattered. Tools, a flask, rope. He stammered. I only followed orders. I did what I was told. Jane's eyes narrowed. Orders? From whom? Mason swallowed. I can't say. Bantry groaned. He pulled against the ropes. Haydock rushed to him. Hold still, Arthur. You're safe now. Dolly knelt by him. Her tears fell quick. You're alive. Thank God Bantry's voice cracked through the gag. She pulled it free. He gasped for air. They came from behind, cloth over my face, then nothing. Jane listened, her gaze fixed on Mason. His hands trembled, his eyes darted. Slack stepped forward. He drew the cuffs from his pocket, his tone flat. Mason, you're under arrest. Cliffhanger. Mason trembled under questioning, his hands bound, his eyes restless. Slack barked. Speak. Why drug him? Why hide him? Mason's voice cracked. I was told to. I didn't plan it. Jane's gaze steady. Then what did you plan? Mason swallowed. The motor noise. That was me. I pulled the levers, set the machine, so it sounded real. Dolly gasped. You fooled the whole house. Mason looked down. I didn't want to, but I was paid. I was told what to do. Slack leaned in. By whom? Mason hesitated. I never saw his face, only his words. Met him at the Crown and Anchor, always in the back room. Slack's tone harsh. A gentleman? Mason nodded. Yes, sir, a gentleman. Well-dressed, smooth voice, never gave a name, just instructions. Jane asked calm. And those instructions? Mason answered quick. Make it seem like Colonel drove off. Leave the note. Demand the hospital fund box. Dolly's eyes widened. The hospital fund. That's what they want. Mason nodded again. That's all he spoke of. The cash box. Said it must be brought out before noon, or Colonel wouldn't live. Slack snorted. Straight ransom, then. Clean as day. Jane shook her head. Too clean. Slack frowned. What now, Miss Marple? He confessed. He gave motive. He gave the target. It ends here. Jane's voice sharp. No, Inspector, it does not end. Bantry stirred weakly, his voice hoarse. They struck me, cloth over my face. I heard a man laugh, a man I knew. Dolly turned fast. You knew him? Bantry shut his eyes. I think so, but it slipped away. Jane leaned closer to Mason. What else did he say at the Crown and Anchor? Mason bit his lip. He said I'd be safe. Said no one would look twice at a servant. He laughed at that. He said the rich never see the hands that serve them. Jane's eyes narrowed. Did he ever mention money beyond the box? Mason shook his head. Only the cash, nothing else. Dolly clutched Jane's hand. So Arthur's life was just for a box of coins? Jane's voice softened. No, Dolly, that box was only a reason. Too small for the risk, too simple for the plan. Slack scowled. You doubt again? He admitted it. He told us the place. He told us the demand. Jane's gaze cut through him, her words final. Then the money isn't the point. Cliffhanger. Jane sat forward. Dolly, may I see the ledger? Dolly blinked. The hospital accounts? Jane nodded. Yes, bring them here. Dolly rose. She walked to the cabinet. Her hands shook as she unlocked it. She carried the heavy book across. She laid it on the table, leather worn, corners frayed. Jane opened it slow. Her eyes moved line by line. Her finger traced sums. Slack folded his arms. This waste of time again. What has a book to do with ransom? Jane did not answer. She turned more pages. Her brows knit. Her hand stopped. She tapped a line. See here. Dolly leaned close. What of it? Jane's voice stayed calm. This entry shows £50 withdrawn. No receipt, no signature. Slack frowned. Clerical error. Jane turned another page, her voice sharper. And here, £30, same pattern, and here, 25, repeated month by month. Dolly's hand flew to her mouth. All that missing? Jane nodded. Yes, small thefts, spread thin, enough to hide from casual eyes. Haydock muttered, someone bleeding the fund dry. Slack stepped closer. Are you saying? Jane cut in. Yes. The hospital fund has been embezzled. Slack's face hardened. His voice rose. Embezzled? By whom? Jane looked up. That is the heart of this crime. Not ransom, not coins. Someone feared discovery. Bantry's weak voice joined. They used me, took me to hide their theft, so Dolly would never open that book. Dolly gripped the table. Her voice broke. I trusted every man who handled those accounts. How could they? Jane's tone softened. Trust blinds, Dolly. That is why they chose you. Slack slammed his hand on the table. Who had access? Dolly whispered. Ned Ashcroft, myself, Arthur. The committee, Jane's eyes fixed on the page. And which of you gains from silence? Which fears exposure? Slack rubbed his jaw. By heaven, this is no kidnapping. It's cover for fraud. Dolly closed her eyes, her whisper faint. And Arthur nearly died. For figures on a page. Jane's hand rested on hers, her tone steady. Yes, that is the cruelest truth. A man's life weighed against stolen sums. Slack leaned close. Name him, Miss Marple. Who is the thief? Jane closed the ledger, her gaze firm, her words final. And the thief feared exposure. Cliffhanger. Colonel Bantry sat propped in his chair, blanket around his shoulders, face pale, voice rough. Dolly leaned close. You must rest. Enough questions. Jane shook her head. Number he remembers more than he thinks. Let him speak. Bantry cleared his throat. The phone. The man called me Arthur. Jane's eyes sharpened. Go on. He said his car broke down near Chester Cross. Needed me quick. I believed it. Jane nodded. And what else? Bantry closed his eyes. He spoke slow. He said, Old girl will understand. Dolly gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Old girl. That is what he called me. Bantry looked at her. Yes, but not many use that phrase. Only one man I know. Slack leaned forward. Name him. Bantry frowned. I must think. I heard it before. Parish meetings. Committee gatherings. Jane urged him. Focus. Whose voice was it? Bantry's brow furrowed. His hand gripped the blanket. It was smooth, confident, too confident, familiar in the wrong way. Haydock added, Memory plays tricks when a man is drugged. Jane ignored him. Colonel, trust the habit. Who calls Dolly old girl? Bantry hesitated. A pause stretched. Then he exhaled. Ned Ashcroft. Dolly's voice broke. Ned? But he's chairman of the council. He's our friend. Bantry's lips tightened. He said it often, Dolly. At meetings, at dinners. He would laugh and say it without thought. Jane leaned back, her voice low. There it is, the slip he never meant you to hear. Slack bristled. You'd accuse a parish leader on one phrase? Jane's eyes cut through him. Number on more. The theft in the ledger. The servant he placed here. The call. All roads point one way. Dolly shook her head. I cannot believe it. Ned in my drawing room. Ned at my table. Jane's tone softened. Deception works best when close to home. Bantry's hand trembled. He laughed when I answered. I thought it was Hale, but the laugh was Ned's. Dolly's eyes filled. So Arthur's life risked. For his greed. Jane nodded slowly. Greed hides behind titles, behind charm. But it slips in words. Slack crossed his arms. You mean to stand by this? You'll put the council under suspicion? Jane's reply was firm. Yes, Inspector. The council. Ned Ashcroft cliffhanger. Slack paced the hall. His boots struck hard. I will not accuse a parish leader on your riddles. Jane sat calm. Not riddles. Motive. Clear as numbers on a page. Slack scowled. You've only a phrase and an old ledger. Dolly rose, her voice low. There is more, Inspector. Ned recommended Mason to us. He insisted we'd take him. Slack turned fast. And what of it? Dolly's hand trembled. He pressed Arthur, said Mason was reliable, said we owed him a place. Bantry shifted in his chair, his voice hoarse. He always pushed me from the ledgers, said I had no head for sums, said leave it to him. Jane nodded. Exactly. Keep the colonel blind. Keep Dolly busy. Control the accounts. Control the theft. Slack muttered. Still too thin. Jane's tone sharpened. Then weigh this. Ned laughed when Dolly's life was put at stake. He placed the servant. He touched the funds. He used the phrase no one else used. That is not thin, Inspector. That is the rope tightening. Dolly's eyes filled. All those evenings, he smiled at me. Called me friend. Bantry gripped her hand. Deception, Dolly. He wore courtesy as a mask. Haydock stepped forward. The longer we argue, the longer the truth slips. Arthur was nearly lost. Will we wait for another victim? Slack hesitated. His eyes narrowed. And what do you suggest? Jane leaned in. We use what he wants. The ledger. The fund. He will reach for it again. And when he does, we'll be waiting. Slack's jaw clenched. You mean bait him? Jane nodded. Yes, a trap. He must believe the theft still hidden. He must believe Dolly will pay quietly. Dolly shivered. You want me to face him, alone? Jane's hand rested on hers. You will not be alone. We will place men near. Slack will guard. I will watch. He will think you nervous. That is what he expects. Bantry's voice grew firmer. And I will stand behind. He took me once. He will not again. Slack rubbed his chin. It is risky. If we fail, he walks free. If we move too soon, he slips the noose. Jane's eyes steady. Risk is the only way to truth. Wait too long, and trust dies in this house. Dolly whispered. I cannot bear to look at him again. Jane's reply was soft. You must, Dolly. Only then will you be free of his shadow. Slack finally nodded. Very well, tonight. We play it your way. Jane's voice cut sharp. Her words final. We set a trap, tonight. Cliffhanger. Dolly sat at the desk, the cash box open, the false ledger inside. Jane spoke, calm. Close it now. He must believe it is real. Dolly's hands trembled. I feel I'm betraying Arthur again. Jane shook her head. No, Dolly. You're drawing him out. Without this, truth never comes. Dolly pressed the lid shut. The lock clicked. Slack entered. 2 constables behind him. They'll wait at the stile, hidden, quiet. None will move till my signal. Jane nodded. Good. He must see only Dolly. Dolly clutched the box. I don't know if I can. Jane's hand rested on hers. Show nerves. He expects that. He knows you as gentle, not bold. Play the part he wrote for you. Bantry rose from his chair. I'll go too. Jane shook her head. No, Arthur. You must stay. If he sees you strong, he may flee. Tonight is Dolly's night. Bantry frowned, but yielded. Then God keep her safe. They moved out, the night quiet, the stile near the lane, a lantern hung far back. Constables took their place, unseen. Dolly stood in the shadow, box pressed to her chest, her breath quick, uneven. Jane whispered, Do not look for him, do not call. He will come when he believes you fear him. Slack shifted near the hedge, his voice low. If he runs, my men take him. Dolly nodded, her eyes lowered, her lips moved faint. Arthur, I do this for you. Minutes dragged, owls called from the trees, steps sounded faint on the gravel. Jane lifted her hand. Steady, he comes. A shape moved along the lane, tall, firm stride, hat pulled low. Dolly gripped the box tighter, her knees shook, her voice a whisper. He's here. The figure drew closer. Torchlight caught his coat, broad shoulders, well-cut suit. Jane's eyes fixed, her words soft. The gentleman revealed. Slack tensed, his hand near his whistle, the constables ready in the dark. Dolly's heart pounded. She whispered through clenched teeth. I can't face him. Jane's voice firm. You must. The figure stepped into the light, his face clear now. Ned Ashcroft. Cliffhanger. Ned reached for the box, his hand stretched slow, his eyes fixed on Dolly. Slack stepped out. Stop there. Ned froze, his face hardened. What's this? Dolly trembled, her arms clutched the box tight. You wanted this, Ned. You came for it. Ned straightened. Rubbish. I only came to see if you were safe, nothing more. Jane moved forward, her tone quiet, sharp. And yet your hand reached for the ledger, before a word to Dolly, before a glance to her face. Ned forced a smile. You misjudge me. That box means nothing to me. Jane opened the lid. She lifted the book. She held it high. This is what you fear, Ned. This tells the tale of every coin lost, every sum you stole. Ned's jaw tightened. I will not listen to this nonsense. Slack stepped closer. Mason spoke your name. He said a gentleman hired him, paid him, told him to use his place in this house. Ned's voice rose. A lie. The word of a servant against mine? You take that over a councilman? Jane's reply was calm. Mason was your choice. You placed him here. You knew Dolly's trust would shield him. Ned snapped. Coincidences, nothing more. Jane turned the ledger to him. Her finger tapped the lines. £50, 30, 25, month by month, all under your watch, all under your hand. Dolly's voice shook. You stood at my table. You called me friend, and you stole behind my back. Ned's breath quickened. His voice cracked. I only borrowed for the hospital, for expenses not covered, nothing more. Jane cut him off. Number you fed your pride. You paid debts. You covered scandal. This was not need. It was choice. Slack raised his hand. Mason's word, the ledger's proof, and your slip on the telephone. You are done, Ashcroft. Ned's shoulders sagged. His eyes fell. For a moment, silence. Then his voice broke. Yes, I took the sums. Small at first, then more, always hidden, always careful. Dolly whispered. Why, Ned? You had everything, respect, position. Why? Ned's eyes shone, his voice bitter. Because respect means nothing when debt crushes you, because position shatters when secrets come out. Jane's gaze stayed firm. You risked a man's life. You broke trust. For what? For fear. Ned's lips trembled. He looked at Dolly, then at Bantry, his final words heavy. I had to protect my name, or lose everything. Cliffhanger. Mason stood in the corner, hands bound, eyes down. Ned stood stiff, his face pale, his lips pressed tight. Slack stepped forward. Both of you will answer in court. Theft, deceit, and worse. He signaled. Constables moved in. They gripped Mason by the arms. The chauffeur sagged without fight. Dolly watched in silence. Her chest rose fast. Her hand clutched the arm of the chair. Jane whispered to her. It is nearly done. Dolly's eyes filled. I trusted them. Mason served my house. Ned shared my table. How blind I was. Jane shook her head. Not blind. Trusting. That is your gift, Dolly. They twisted it. That is their shame, not yours. Bantry's voice broke through, his tone hard. They nearly killed me. For money. For scribbles on a page. Ned turned his head, his voice low. You don't understand. It was not only money. Slack barked. Quiet. Save it for the magistrate. Mason trembled. I never wanted this. He forced me. Said no one would suspect a servant. Slack growled. You obeyed. That is enough. Bantry's fist clenched. You drugged me. Left me like an animal. You'll hang for it. Jane touched his arm. Anger solves nothing, Arthur. The truth stands higher than rage. Dolly looked at Ned. Her voice cracked. You sat in my parlor. You smiled at me. You called me old girl. All while plotting this. Ned closed his eyes, his reply weak. I was desperate. My debts swallowed me whole. Jane's tone was calm, steady. Greed never hides forever. It always comes to light. That is the nature of greed. Dolly lowered her head, her whisper faint. And yet it cost us so much. Trust, peace, safety in our own home. Haydock stepped forward. You survived. That is what matters. Bantry's jaw tightened. It matters, yes. But betrayal stings deeper than chloroform. The constables pulled Mason toward the door. He stumbled once. Slack shoved him on. Two more men took Ned by the arms. He resisted a moment. Then his shoulders slumped. Dolly turned away, her eyes wet. I cannot watch him go. Not Ned. Not the man we thought a friend. Jane placed a hand on her shoulder. Let him go, Dolly. He chose his path. You chose to see the best in him. That is no crime. Slack gave the signal. Take them both, at once. The hall grew silent. Only footsteps echoed. Ned looked back once, his eyes dark, his voice sharp. You don't know half of it. Cliffhanger. The hearth fire burned low. Shadows lay still, the house quiet at last. Dolly sat near the flames, her hands folded, her eyes red but calmer now. Jane sat beside her. She poured tea, slow. Drink, Dolly. Strength will return. Dolly nodded faintly. Jane, I cannot thank you enough. Without you, I shudder to think. Jane smiled gently. You called. That was enough. The rest followed. Bantry entered the room, his steps slower than before, his face stern, but his voice steady. This house will change. No man will sit in trust without account, no fund without review. Dolly looked at him, her voice soft. You are right, Arthur. We trusted too easily. We left shadows to others. He squeezed her hand. Never again, that much I promise. Slack cleared his throat. He lingered by the door, his hat in his hand, his tone gruff. You were right, Miss Marple. I misjudged. I followed tracks. You followed sense. Jane tilted her head. It is not a contest, Inspector. We both sought truth. Slack gave a short nod. Still, I give you respect, hard-earned. Haydock leaned forward. He studied Bantry's face. You'll recover, Arthur. Bruises fade, but guard your heart. Betrayal strikes deeper. Bantry gave a thin smile. Perhaps so. But we live. That is enough for now, Dolly whispered. Yet we lost more than coins. We lost a friend we thought we had. Jane answered softly. It is never the money, Dolly. Always the heart. That is what wounds. That is what heals. Silence settled. The fire cracked once. Outside the night passed on. Dolly closed her eyes. Will the village ever look at us the same? Jane replied, calm. Trust is fragile. It bends, it breaks. But truth once shown binds stronger. You will heal. The village will heal, too. Bantry straightened. Then let us lead them. Show them we faced lies and still stood. Slack replaced his hat. Justice will come swift. The court will handle the rest. My part is done. He paused a moment, his voice lower. Bantry, Dolly, you're lucky. Few escape such plots alive. Dolly's lips trembled. Luck? Or Jane? Jane looked into the flames, her words steady. Luck helps, but reason saves. The clock struck, the hour late. Each face turned to the fire, tired yet eased. Dolly spoke last. Thank you, Jane. You saved more than Arthur. You saved us all. Jane's eyes softened. Not saved, Dolly. Only shown. Truth was here all along. Her voice dropped, gentle, final. And still, behind every door, waits another secret.